The country came to a halt as an unrivaled storm tore through Parliament, one which many feel has the potential to shift the course of South African politics for the next few years. In what is already being held as the Parliament bombshell, seasoned legislator Beck Kim shocked the entire nation when he rose from his seat in the midst of a charged session and let fly a barrage of disclosures that squarely targeted Mbabula. For years, Mbabula was known as a power broker in the African National Congress, a survivor strategist with a reputation for staying alive, a man who rode out scandals and factional battles with remarkable success. He has been a party kingpin and an embattled lightning rod for detractors of the ruling elite for decades. Yet, despite countless whispers, no one had ever managed to produce evidence strong enough to withstand parliamentary scrutiny until now. All of that changed in a single afternoon of high drama. Beck Kim stood up from his chair, a thick folder of papers held tightly in his hands. The chamber was already on edge from previous debates, and it went silent when his voice boomed around the floor. This house has been misled for too long. The South African people have been betrayed by one of the very men who have promised to serve them. Today I present evidence, dramatic, irrefutable evidence of Mbabula's betrayal. With a flash, pandemonium broke out. Opposition benches thundered in approval, their members thumping on desks urging her on. ANC MPs yelled in outrage, some jumping to their feet to protest. The speaker pleaded repeatedly for order, her gavel thumping on the wood, but the den drowned her out. Cameras filmed the drama unfolding and millions watching the parliamentary broadcast at home were left stunned. The bombshell had been delivered and nothing could halt its shock waves. Beck Kim started piecing together the evidence with clinical exactness. There were documents purporting to illustrate Mbabula's participation in questionable multi-million rand contracts handed out to shell companies controlled by his close associates. There were then revelations about clandestine foreign travel, journeys claimed to be paid for by enigmatic sponsors whose names and reasons remain unknown but whose funds Beck Kim implied had bought sway at the very pinnacle. Then he quoted from private letters, emails and memos suggesting Mbabula used his political office for his own personal financial benefit. But the most incriminating news was yet to come. Beck Kim claimed Mbabula had directly authorized illegal money transfers. The funds initially destined for community development projects aimed at lifting some of South Africa's poorest neighborhoods were routed into private coffers. These are not rumors, Beck Kim stated, his voice angry but unwavering. These are not hushed conversations in the halls. These are papers signed and stamped with names, dates, and transactions. South Africa has a right to know that one of their so-called leaders has been living off the lifeblood of the people. Everyone looked at Mbabula. The man who had made a career of his cocky smirk and unshakable calm now appeared pale, his face set in a strained look. He rose slowly to defend himself. "This is a smearing," he shouted, pounding his fist on the desk. "I will not be prosecuted in an arena of falsehoods." But his show of bravado did not muster the usual response. The rage in his tone appeared to be likely desperation rather than power. Opposition MPs called for his resignation. Even members of his own party sat impassive, their silence eloquent. The session descended into anarchy. Chanting and jeering reverberated through the chamber as opposing groups clashed verbally. Security guards intervened to keep order, and for a few short minutes there was a chance that the angry language might boil over into violence outside the chamber. Reporters in the press gallery rushed to send breaking news. In a matter of seconds, Twitter and Facebook were ablaze. Hashtags such as #MbabulaXexposed, #ParliamentBombshell, and #Stepano were trending throughout the country. Memes, short videos, and screenshots of the evidence went viral so that by nightfall, millions of South Africans were glued to their televisions and cell phones, analyzing each minute detail. For President Sir Ramaphosa, the time could not have been more inconvenient. His government was already shaken by deep factionalism in the ANC and heightened public disillusionment driven by past scandals. This newest eruption had the potential to destabilize his administration even more. Inside sources said that Ramaphosa's closest allies were holding night-long emergency sessions, frantically coming up with damage control strategies. Some of his advisors were advising him to distance himself instantly from Mbabula in order to save face. Others cautioned against giving up on a strong ally as it could trigger backlash from Mbabula's loyalist factions, potentially breaking the party. Political pundits chimed in shortly afterward. One noted commentator called the incident a critical turning point that will make the president confront a choice between defending his own presidency or defending long-time loyalties. Another analyst opined that the scandal might hasten factional battles for power within the ANC, potentially with resulting resignations, suspensions, or even preemptive elections if the party could not manage to keep the fallout at bay. Opposition parties moved fast to capitalize on the moment. The Democratic Alliance demanded Mbabula's suspension immediately and a complete independent probe, labeling the scandal evidence that the ANC had lost its moral compass. The economic freedom fighters took it further, asserting that the ANC is collapsing under the weight of its own corruption and threatening that Ramaphosa himself could not survive politically unless he was willing to move decisively. On the streets, the mood was a volatile mix of outrage and vindication. Many South Africans, long convinced that corruption ran deep within Parliament, saw Mbabula's documents as confirmation of their suspicions. Civil society organizations began circulating petitions within hours demanding not only Mbabula's suspension but also sweeping reforms to increase transparency and accountability in government spending. "This is politics no longer," one protester said in a hastily organized demonstration outside the union buildings. "This is stealing from the people. If Parliament will not hold him accountable, the people will." Community leaders, clergy, and student movements repeated the sentiments in interviews over local radio stations. There was anger evident certainly, but so too was hope. Hope that this scandal might at last bring about change. At the same time, in ANC ranks, there were growing whispers of potential realignments. Some quietly intimated that Mbabula's downfall could open up space for new factions to position themselves. Others worried that the scandal had the potential to further divide the ANC before the next election. "It is a wound that will not close easily," a senior party source who asked not to be named said. Even if Mbabula resigns, the harm to the party's credibility is enormous. As the dust started to settle, the country was left with a series of immediate questions. Would Mbabula resign under mounting pressure?